From the center of the universe, now in its 7th season covering your 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast with Argos color analyst Ben Grant and Coach JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos pregame walkthrough, brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. My name is Ben Grant, joined as always by JB. We're here to get you set for Week 10 of the 2025 CFL season with your Toronto Argonauts back home to host the Ottawa Redblacks at BMO Field Saturday afternoon. Here is what is on the docket for this week. First of all, it's Purolator Tackle Hunger game, and it's very fitting that this falls on the same day that Chris Schultz is being added to the All-Time Argonauts list, along with Nick Volpe. We'll tell you everything you need to know about Saturday's festivities and the Tackle Hunger Drive and what you need to do as an Argonauts fan at BMO Field. Plus, this was maybe the busiest week in recent memory for Argos transactions. We'll take a close look at who they added, who they're looking to add, who they let go, etc. Plus, we've got an offensive line report after promises I made following last week's post-game reaction podcast, and all our usual stuff. Pick six, game preview, injury report, OCDC, one thing, put me down for 20, challenge flag, and our Something in the Water ticket giveaway. All that and more is coming up on this episode of the X's and Argos podcast. All right, JB, let's talk about tacos. And the reason we're talking about tacos is because Something in the Water Brewing is bringing in Ghost Taco. If you've been by recently, you've seen they've got construction going on in the back, and that's because they are setting up a taco stand in conjunction with Ghost Taco. And I've had a lot of questions about Ghost Taco over the last couple of weeks since we started talking about this addition to Something in the Water. Well, you can actually check it out if you want to. It's Taco Fest this week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Something in the Water is going to be on location with their beer. And you can check out Ghost Taco's setup at Taco Fest at Fort York. You can go to tacofest.com for more information. Steve, Rick, Ian, the guys at Something in the Water Brewing, they're so excited about bringing Ghost Taco aboard because it's such a nice compliment to their award-winning beer. And if you haven't tried out the new Longboat, you got to check it out. It is the beer that was made for you, fans of the Double Blue. Maybe check it out on Saturday, pregame, on your way down to BMO Field. It's the perfect thing to do before an Argos football game. Something in the Water Brewing. You got to check it out. Okay, JB, let's get into this. So first of all, Purolator Tackle Hunger. I know you do such a great job always, and I know you're not in town this week, and so I will make sure that I bring some stuff on your behalf. Can you talk a little bit about Purolator Tackle Hunger and the importance of bringing non-perishables and monetary donations down to BMO Field for Saturday's game?
Yeah, of course. Food banks are incredibly important. Anybody who has done any research into it all knows that food banks basically are providing a good portion of the province with their meals. Most many families can afford rent and can afford to keep the lights on, but then there's no money left for food. So this is a great opportunity when you have 12,000 15,000 people coming to one location. If everybody can bring a bag of canned food, you're talking about, tens of thousands of pounds of food. It's such a simple thing to do. It's incredibly rewarding to know, what you've gone to the grocery store and bought is going to be enjoyed by somebody who otherwise would have gone hungry. It's easy to do. You carry a bag, and I hope that everybody, buys in, because a lot of times with charity, to be honest, you give money to an organization, you don't know how much of that money is going to actually achieve anything and how much is just paying for infrastructure. But here, you bring that food, you are guaranteed 100% of that food that is brought is going to be on somebody's table who wouldn't have had it otherwise.
That's really well said. And they will have volunteers set up as early as 12:30 to take your donations, monetary donations as well, but non-perishables is generally the way that people do this. Just bring it in a bag and donate it on your way in or through the gates at BMO Field. And this is perfect that it's falling on the same day as Schultz being honored as an all-time Argo. Nick Volpe as well, but I want to talk about Schultz for a moment because this was his passion. Like, he was so proud of his work with the Purolator Tackle Hunger drive and what he did for that cause. And so, as a tribute to Schultz, if nothing else, like make sure you bring your non-perishables down to BMO Field on Saturday. And Schultz, one of the reasons that he's going in is that he and Volpe too, like they affected the organization, the Argonauts organization in the city in so many different ways. Like with Schultz, it was, first of all, as a heck of a football player, but then also as one of the most interesting, knowledgeable, charismatic broadcasters that we've ever seen. And we were lucky as people that live in Toronto to be able to hear Schultz on the radio call and doing the color commentary. But also the nation got to see Schultz through his work on TSN. And it's just the variety of different ways that he was able to affect you as someone watching CFL football, to me was it makes him so deserving. But one thing I've learned from sitting in that very chair that he occupied, I've heard a lot of Chris Schultz stories over the last few years. And the one thing that is clear is, as good as he was as a broadcaster and an analyst, as good as he was as a player, he was an even better person, the kindest, warmest person you can imagine. Everybody has said that. And so I love to see Chris Schultz being honored Saturday. And then with Volpe, another guy that really contributed in so many different areas. First of all, as a Toronto native, he was part of that Mud Bowl victory, Grey Cup win, one of his 2 Grey Cups. And then he held a wide range of positions with the club, working as a scout, working all over the Toronto Argonauts front office, totaling 7 Grey Cups by the time all was said and done. And so 2 very worthy all-time Argos going in on Saturday. So make sure you're there for that. And just so you know, that is happening pregame. So if you want to time your visit and time your arrival, I'm told that these ceremonies are going to be happening before the anthem, before kickoff. So make sure you are down to BMO Field early. All right, JB, let's get into these transactions. We'll start with the releases. So 2 players released this week, linebacker Jared Martin and defensive end Celestin Haba. Let's talk about those 2 guys first, JB. Like Jared Martin, are you surprised at his release? Because I was, because he was the starting Sam linebacker last week, and they didn't bring in a new Sam linebacker this week. Jared Martin leaving caught me as a surprise. I knew there were going to have to be moves because signings were being made, but are you surprised it's him?
I would have to, it's hard to get a lot of statistical information. I guess I am a little bit, just because there's so little depth at that position. But they obviously were not enamored with what he was doing. It's a very difficult position to play. I would imagine there's probably some special teams issues as well connected there. They just wanted an upgrade. I can't imagine, to be honest, who they have penciled in. It's a problem. I think it's a very specialized position, and clearly, like, they didn't feel like he was getting the job done.
Yeah, that's the reason it surprised me, like you said, is just because it's thin there. And they obviously weren't that happy with his play because he had lost his job the week before. And then due to the injury to Derek Sluka, they had to move Blackburn back to safety. And so Martin came back in again. But clearly they weren't happy with his performance. And I think you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head with special teams. As a Sam backer, you were going to be playing a ton of special teams. Like, remember, just think back to like a Darius Pickett and how many special teams units he was on. That's pretty typical of a Sam linebacker. You need to be good at specials. And maybe that was the area. But he also didn't really flash to the degree that I think we're accustomed to seeing Sam linebackers flash. It is a position where you are generally noticeable. And Jared Martin, while he didn't stand out making any mistakes at all, he wasn't a guy that you walked away from the game thinking, man, that Jared Martin out there is something.
It was not a game where special teams was covered in glory as well.
Yeah, that's true. I know it was a rough special teams week last week.
Yeah, so somebody from it had to go. But, that's what it felt like to me. It's like somebody was going off the boat from specials.
And then defensive end Celestin Haba, never really got on the field. He's been healthy scratch for a few weeks now, and they're pretty stacked at the defensive end position. Like they've still got my guy Brevin Allen, who is hasn't been playing, and I think he is going to turn into. I still think he is a player, a guy that I'm still excited to see and still waiting for. But you've got him still on the practice roster, and so there is depth back there. And so needing to make moves, Celestin Haba as a healthy scratch, that's usually one of the first guys you're going to look to let go when you're bringing in players. All right, let's get into the acquisitions and actually started with a trade and acquiring rights, not a physical player yet. But the Argos acquired the rights to running back Spencer Brown for a conditional 8th round pick next year. And I assume the conditional part is just based on him signing with the team. So he's UAB's all-time leading rusher. He's the Blazers' leader in rushing yards, total touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, 100-yard games with like 19 100-yard rushing games. Spent 3 seasons with the Panthers, was with the Falcons last year. JB, what can you tell us about Spencer Brown? Should we be excited about this guy coming in, potentially?
I think excited is probably too strong.
Okay.
He has bounced around the league a little, so I think you get more excited when you get a guy from America who hasn't really had any CFL look. So the fact that he was on some teams and they weren't sold. He's a big dude. He's not quite as big as Boone, but he's a heavy back. I mean, he's a goal line back. He's a guy that that you want to really pound the rock with. He is pretty fast, like you said. Look, he had a couple of shots in the NFL. He played on some practice squads, and when you think of the thousands of people that are trying to make the NFL, even making a practice squad speaks to pretty elite athleticism. And he was on for more than 1 year. So his resume is definitely worthy of a tryout. I think I'm tempered by the fact that other CFL teams weren't sold, but 4.58 40. When he did such a thing, a while ago, he's an older back, right? He's been around for a bit. So yeah, I think there's potential there for him to be a bit of a hammer. They don't have that right now in the backfield. So I think, maybe short yardage goal line stuff, but I'm a little more interested in the offensive lineman, but we'll see. Yeah, you look at him; he's surprisingly fast for a guy his size, and he's a strong back. You watch his highlight films, and they are mainly him driving his legs and pushing guys into the end zone. So they could use that in the backfield. So yeah, not bad.
And speaking of a guy with big legs who can drive, the running back they signed, Peny Boone, the 2023 MAC Offensive Player of the Year. He ended up in a couple different programs. Getting to watch him at practice yesterday, I couldn't believe the lower body size. Like, he looks like a defensive end. Like, his legs are massive. Yeah. He can get rolling. What can you tell us about the former MAC Offensive Player of the Year?
In a way, I guess I'm probably a little more excited about him. He's a little more of an unknown quality than Brown. He's bigger, his weight sort of varies by where you look at, but he's probably somewhere around 6'1", 240. He's a load.
Yeah.
Not a bad 40 time. He's younger than Brown, hasn't bounced around as much. He moved, he has sort of moved around a little bit in his college career. But I think he might. I'm a little more excited about him because I think the chance of you finding something that other people underestimated is a little higher with him.
And they were doing everything they could to get him up to speed fast yesterday at practice. Like, I think there's like options. Like both of Toronto's backs right now, Mac Mahan LeBourne they're not big guys, right? And you see Boone is obviously a big guy. And getting the rights to Brown, Spencer Brown's a big guy. Like clearly they feel like the lightning thing maybe only gets you so far. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see them try to get Boone up and ready as quickly as possible. I don't know if it's too early this week, but certainly for next week, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him dressing.
Yeah, I'm a little excited about him, but again, it's pretty tempered because he is huge, but he's not very fast. But in terms of running back speed.
But after
so we'll see.
After my rant about going in shotgun from first and goal from the one in the post-game reaction pod, I wondered if maybe we're finding other options. Like if the coaching staff has decided, look, we just can't quarterback sneak, we just can't do it successfully, maybe bringing in a heavier back is going to be the answer to that.
If you can block it up to give him 2 steps, he's a problem.
Mm-hmm. The other 2 signings are at offensive line, which I know a lot of people were excited about. I was a little surprised by Ryan Sceviour's signing. So first of all, Sceviour, if you're a CFL fan, you know who he is. 6-year career, mostly with Calgary, a West All-Star, a Grey Cup champion with the Stampeders. He was a very strong guard. He didn't look the same last season in Saskatchewan. Honestly, 2023 wasn't even his best season in Calgary either. But he does have a history of great guard play. Why that signing is surprising is that the guards have actually been okay. And we'll get into this in the offensive line report, but even last week where the offensive line seemed to really struggle and everyone was sending me messages like, what's wrong with the offensive line? When I went back and graded the offensive line, spoiler for this next segment, but the interior was okay. Like not great, but okay, manageable. It was the tackles where there were more issues, and Sceviour is not going to come into play tackle. Like if anything, I think he's a backup guard and he could work his way into being a starting guard. But what I think it does open the door for is if you wanted to try and experiment with Sage Dockstader moving to tackle, because that is his natural position. He was a very good NCAA tackle. He's played that spot for a long time. Maybe the thought is, hey, let's bring in Sceviour to play the guard spot. Let's try and bounce out Dockstader. I could see that being a strategy and that being why you'd bring in a guard at this stage, because they do seem sort of gifted in the guard position. But yeah, that might make sense to me. And then
like it.
Go on.
I like that signing. I mean, he's not somebody who's bounced around the league. He was Calgary. He was great in Calgary, and then fell off. Wasn't as good in Saskatchewan, but I think there's the potential for reclamation there. Of all the positions, offensive line is the one where coaching and system has the biggest impact, and you have, I think, the most variance in terms of whether a guy who used to be good can be good again. So I love that signing, actually.
And then the other signing, tackle Brendan Kemp. Kemp played 13 games in 3 seasons for Hamilton. He was with Saskatchewan in training camp, was let go as part of their final cutdowns. So at his best, this is the question that I got a lot yesterday. So at his best, was he better than what we've seen from Boss and Moore? Like, yes, but there's an asterisk next to that because I want to be very careful about how much blame we put on Moore and Boss. They deserve some, there's no question, but it's a little bit of a stacked deck, and I'll talk about that more in our next segment. But like Ryan Hunter, for example, was an excellent tackle last year, and he looked terrible this year. It's not like he forgot how to play tackle. There's more going on there, and I will get into that next. But in terms of Kemp, like he's a huge man with some experience playing, starting at tackle. And so he's a guy that I think could work in fairly quickly too. And just to give you numbers on these guys, Kemp is wearing 61, Sceviour is wearing 57, and Boone was wearing 13 at practice yesterday. You must be excited just about Kemp's size. Like he looks like a tackle out there.
Yeah, look, his size is clearly elite. He got some NFL looks because he has NFL size. Usually guys who are that big, are not as good as you would hope. I'm less excited about him, but I mean, it's certainly worth a try. But I mean, that's a lot of. I mean, he's an aircraft carrier out there, so is he going to be able to pick guys up? I mean, maybe. I don't know.
What's funny is like so when I arrived at practice, I was just trying to find him so I could see what number he was wearing, and I was looking for like the tall guy, but in that offensive line room, like he's looking up at Sage Dockstader and Shane Richards and would be Anim Denkwa if he was out there. Like they have so many giants in this Argos offensive line room. So yeah, it took me a minute to track him down. Let's transition into that O-line report. So I know I talked about how I grade offensive linemen every week. I got a lot of questions about that. People were saying, well, what's your grade? First of all, my grades are not the same as PFF's. They don't work the same way. I don't generate like a pretty number the way they do, where it looks kind of like a report card. And so there's not much point really going through my system, I don't think, with you. But needless to say, what my grades told me from this week is pretty much what they have all season. So Peter Nicastro played well. He was positive in my grading. My grading almost goes like, I guess, like the reverse of a golf score. So like positive is good, negative is bad, as opposed to a golf score where, you're below par. That's good. Above par is bad. This is a reverse of that. So Nicastro ended up +6 in my grading, that's a good score. That's good. Van Dahl, Sage Dockstader were both just about even, which is fine. Like if you have even play across your offensive line, you're going to be okay. And I think the Argos getting even for all 5 O linemen would be awesome. I think there's no game this year where we've had that. And it's mostly been the tackle play that's been poor. And yeah, like grading wise, Boss and Moore were very poor against Winnipeg. But the reason why I still maintain has a little bit to do with Nick Arbuckle. And I don't want to throw Nick under the bus because I think he's given the Argonauts very good quarterback play from a second string quarterback. I think he's done everything and more that you could ask for. But one of the areas in which he's not as strong as Chad Kelly is pocket management. As a tackle, you have to, like, it is such a difficult job. You have to bank on the fact that your defensive end that you're up against has contain responsibility. Unless you see something flash early, you're assuming he has contain. And so you're expecting to go around the outside. And these guys are fast. They are among the best athletes on the field, defensive ends. And so you got to go immediately step for step with them. When defensive ends feel like they can freely attack the inside gap, it makes your tackle job so difficult. And so the question is, well, why don't defensive ends do that all the time? Because usually they get burned by the quarterback. When Chad Kelly's in the pocket and somebody takes the inside gap, someone with contained responsibility attacks inside the tackle, Chad immediately escapes out to that direction, whether it's left or right. Immediately, he sees it instantly. It's one of Chad Kelly's sort of super skills in terms of pocket management. He's very good at that. As soon as he senses that inside move, he will break contain. And so guys just don't do it against him. You look at like the offensive line stats when Chad Kelly was the quarterback, they just didn't give up sacks. And yes, the offensive line was a little better, but a lot of that's to do with the quarterback too. And so like with Arbuckle, he doesn't really move the pocket like that. He steps up in the pocket, and that in some ways makes it worse for both knockdowns, which we saw from Willie Jefferson all through Willie Jefferson had, I know PFF was saying that was the highest graded game they've ever had for a CFL player was Willie Jefferson. A lot of that coming in the second half, but some of it was made easier because there was no moving target there. Arbuckle is a little late to recognize that inside move and escape the pocket. So is this Arbuckle's fault? No. He's a contributing factor in this. Is it the tackle's fault? Like, yes, but I think that asterisk is really important to mention because it's not like Boss and Moore can't play tackle. They can. I think they would be perfectly fine tackles with Chad Kelly as a quarterback. But the truth of it is he's not the quarterback right now, and so they've got to find a way to get this done. Whether that's tightening up splits, whether that's chipping and giving help where they can. I don't know exactly which answer they'll go with. There's a few options for them, but yeah, that was a rough game to rewatch and grade. All right, JB, let's get into pick six. And our pick six this week kind of ties into what we've just been talking about. I'll throw it over to you first. But before I do, I just want to tell you that pick six is sponsored by Something in the Water Brewing. This is a segment that you can participate in every week. You just have to ask us questions. Look for the prompt on social media, whether it's on Twitter or Blue Sky, at Coach Ben Grant on Blue Sky, at Ben_Grant on Twitter. When I look for the prompt, send us questions. If we answer your question on the podcast, you will win a 6-pack of beer, courtesy of Something in the Water Brewing. Our winner this week is Brian Sword, who has won his 6-pack. His questions is as follows, and it's to do again with offensive line. I don't know if I've ever seen a fan base so obsessed with offensive line. I love it because I think most fans don't talk at all about offensive line. Our listeners are all over offensive line. That dominated the questions this week. Brian Sword says, what options do the Argos have to improve their offensive line? And why do you think they've not brought back Isiah Cage, who would surely help? So, JB, I'll turn it over to you first, and then I'll follow it up. What do you think?
Well, there's not a ton you can do in terms of improving your offensive lines. Why offensive linemen are worth their weight in gold, twice their weight in gold. So when you find a good one, it's everything. Ryan Hunter obviously changed the team. He had kind of an off year, and now he's out. So that's led to issues, but it's just really, really hard to find offensive linemen. I think, they're clearly looking for offensive linemen and trolling and bringing people in and seeing if they can find something. But a lot of times you are kind of stuck with what you have, and you've got to hopefully draft somebody that you can turn into a starter. Not to be, too grim about it, but it's incredibly hard to find a good offensive lineman. That's why teams will often have a good offensive line for a couple of years, because they're able to draft and find it, and other teams just can't achieve it. And I think that's where the Argos are a little bit right now. I wouldn't say the offensive line is a disaster, but they're missing parts, and they don't really have like a solid base on that offensive line. They're moving people around and trying guys in different parts, and kind of doing the best they can with a very immobile quarterback. So it's not a great scenario right now.
And I would say with Isiah Cage, just like I said with Ryan Hunter before, like Isiah Cage, when he was playing, looked much better than the tackle production we're getting now, but it's not apples to apples. And so clearly the coaching staff, Isiah Cage is out there, but obviously the coaching staff is like, well, he's not better than the guys that we have right now. No, and if they feel that, like, they know they're on the floor with them.
He also is injury prone. And it can be incredibly frustrating as a coaching staff. That old, your best ability is availability. You would much prefer, I would say, as a coach, to try and coach up somebody who's not that good, but is going to be, or not as good as you would hope, but is going to be there every game, as opposed to somebody who is in and out or can play half a game, or it's just way too much in and out. That would be my guess, is they don't really want to go on is Cage starting ride again.
And anytime you're wondering about the tackle position, again, go back to what I said about Ryan Hunter. He was the best offensive lineman in the league, and looked very poor this year at tackle. And it's not to do with him forgetting how to play offensive line. He is still a great offensive lineman. He is still among the best offensive linemen in the league. That didn't go away. The situation, the structure, that is what has changed. And so you put Isiah Cage in the same thing, and he would be a shadow of what you remember as Isiah Cage. Same thing with Deshaun Allen. Like, these guys would not look like themselves this year, given the way that the Argos are constructed right now. And it'll probably stay that way until the return of Chad Kelly to a degree. They just have to get it closer to even par. Like, they have to get it a little bit better, just so that they're not giving up that inside rush, or they've got a counter to that and they're threatening contain. Like, until they do that, teams are going to keep taking chances inside, and it doesn't matter who you have out there blocking. It's not going to be a good pass blocking day. All right, JB, let's get into this game preview. This is a big one. Obviously, Ottawa, Toronto, it's huge for both teams. The Argos won the last meeting 29-16. This, first of all, before we even get into the game analysis, this is a great game to bring your family to. Like, if you're looking for a game on the schedule, you're like, I'm looking for something for my family to do. The weather forecast looks good Saturday. The 3 p.m. start. I love bringing my family out to 3 p.m. games. I think that's the perfect time for kickoff. It's also hat giveaway this week. They're giving away 5,000 hats. First 5,000 fans are going to get Argos hats. So you want to get there early, not just for the hats, but as I said before, the ceremonies to honor Schultz and Volpe are pregame as well. So you want to get down there early to BMO Field. JB, you might be wondering if this is the game that I would be using my must-win armband for, you having already spent yours. Yeah. I am not using it this week. Everybody is saying that this is a must-win game, and I agree this is an extremely important game. In my mind, we're not at must-win yet. It's knocking on the door, and if they don't win against Ottawa this week, I will almost certainly be using it next week. But I don't think we're quite there yet in the territory where I'm going to use my only must-win game of the year. So am I a fool for doing that, JB?
I agree. I mean, I agree the CFL season is long and it doesn't really matter till Labor Day, and all of that is true. However, Ottawa is one of the worst teams in the league. Toronto is at home. If you're going to stack, I mean, even in the CFL, you have to win some games to make the playoffs. If you can't play Edmonton 9 times, so at home versus one of the 3 worst teams in the league, I would say it's pretty close to a must-win for me. If they're planning to get to, let's say, 9 wins, 8 wins, 9 wins is probably the goal. You're gonna need to start winning games. You're not gonna win 8 in a row, so you have to start picking up some wins. So I would. I don't know why I don't get a second must-win since I was right on my first one, but I would call this a must-win. I think you have to start stacking some wins because it's going to be much harder playing those other teams. You got to win at home against a bottom tier team.
I knew this would happen when I gave you only one must win. I knew you would use it like immediately and then complain all season that you didn't have another one. This is spilling your candies in the lobby.
I like to eat them before the car trip.
And to give you a peek behind the curtain, listening at home. So JB and I have been in some football fantasy leagues together. This is one league where we have a limited number of transactions you can make, and JB has used all of his transactions by like week 2 of the season because that is how he rolls. So it didn't surprise me that your must-win game came in the game.
I strike
3.
when the opportunity presents itself. I don't decide when that is.
Let's get into the injury report this week. Not the worst injury report, actually some good news. So let's go through maybe the best news first is that Derek Sluka, after not practicing at all on Tuesday, was able to go full on Wednesday. That I thought was great news, and that made me feel a little bit better about releasing Jarrett Martin, because then that means that you can have Tyshawn Blackburn go back to that Sam linebacker spot if Sluka's going to play safety. It's basically those 3 guys. It's like Sluka, Blackburn, and Edouard. Like those are your guys that are your safeties and your Sams. That's what you've got on this team right now. If you needed to, you could probably bring Darius Bratton down to play Sam. I think he works there, but you'd rather not move multiple pieces around. Ideally, he stays at the halfback spot. So really, Edouard, Blackburn, Sluka, that's your triangle. So if Sluka can go, and based on yesterday's practice, it looks like he's going to be able to with that ankle injury. Then that means that, Blackburn can play that Sam spot. That's huge. Jamin Pelly missed practice on Tuesday due to illness. He was practicing full on Wednesday. Jeremiah Ojo limited still. It'd be great to get him back from a special team standpoint, certainly. Kevin Mattal did not practice after going limited on Tuesday. Same thing with Winton McManus, limited on Tuesday, didn't practice yesterday. Those things are worth keeping an eye on, especially McManus. I think with Mattal, because Hersey Mayala he's a good player, and I think we forget that he hasn't been active, he hasn't been contributing at all because the Canadian receivers are so stacked, but Maela can step in just fine. We saw him do that at the end of the Winnipeg game. So you hate to be without Kevin Mittal, but I do think that McManus one is more important to watch. Devaris Daniels limited yesterday after being limited Tuesday. I'm hoping he can go with that hip injury. And then Jack Cassar limited both yesterday and today as he works back from that adductor injury, which is just so difficult to get through. They're being really cautious with him because you just don't want to have setback after setback with that one. So that's the look at the injury report this week. And as much as there's stuff on it, that is by far, I think, the most positive injury report we've had in a long time. Let's get to OCDC. For OCDC, JB will be handling the defensive side of the ball. I'll handle the offensive side of the ball. We will start as the coaches for the Ottawa Redblacks. JB, you are Ottawa's DC. What are you doing to stop this Toronto attack?
It's a good question. I think that Arbuckle has been playing well. Toronto has been able to put up points. So, I would say from that point of view, the Toronto offense is respectable, right? I mean, they're fourth in the league in points for. You can't just dismiss them as a team that hasn't won very many games. But the running game is still not a concern at all. So that, from a defensive point of view, that thing makes things a lot easier. I think the plan is always going to be similar. You don't have to worry about Arbuckle getting outside. You can collapse that pocket. You can go after him. You can really attack those A gaps because you don't have to worry about somebody getting outside. I would do that. Ottawa doesn't have a particularly great pass rush. Maudlin is fantastic, but as a team, they're not that great. So I would definitely take this as an opportunity to try and amp up that rush attack, bring a lot of heat early in the game to see if maybe you can get a turnover. A lot of man defense. I wouldn't play zone against Toronto. I don't think the receivers are great at getting off. So I'm attacking the quarterback. Man coverage. Toronto is dangerous at big plays, so you can't sleep on that. But for me, single high is enough. A single high safety, an aggressive defense, which is one of the things that makes it so hard on the offensive line. Is teams bring more heat against them than other teams because they don't respect the running game and they don't respect the quarterback running, and that really compounds for the offensive line who are facing more. I'd love to see actually what the statistics are on how many blitzes or how many more than 4 players rushing Toronto has faced, because I would bet that it's probably highest in the league, or certainly right there. So I don't think the book has changed. I think you have to really attack Toronto and see if the offensive line can hold up against the pressure.
I actually wonder, because I agree with everything you said there, but I wonder why we haven't seen even more. Like, what's stopping teams from just saying, we're just going to send 7 the whole game? Because,
it's tiring.
I guess so. Oh,
it's true.
I know it's true.
Not to throw my Patriots in, but Tom knew all you have to do is last to the fourth quarter, because in the fourth quarter, the pass rush is, so unless you have 7-8 guys that you can roll, it's tough. But I agree with you. I don't know why in the first half there isn't more constant pressure. It just seems, I don't know. I don't have an answer for it. I hope nobody changes their mind, but
because Montreal did it for a half. But I think because they were down 3 scores, and man, we just gotta blitz, and it worked, and they won the game. Winnipeg kind of waited till they were on the ropes last week, and then they're like, okay, well, it's time to send everybody. I don't know. I guess maybe that's why. From an exhaustion standpoint, you can't do that from the word go. But it's also, I guess, a high risk play too. You don't want to just hand Like you don't want a jump ball for Coxie to be what kills you. So maybe that's part of it too.
I guess, but I mean, Toronto has moved the ball, right? Like Toronto's offense is legitimate. Like even the games they're losing, they're not losing games, 28-5. The offense is pretty good, so I don't know why teams don't push a little more. It's interesting.
Let's switch to the offensive side of the ball. So my attack this week will be a lot of quick passes. I know Toronto has given up some big plays down the field, there's no question, and some have been real highlights, especially like in that Hamilton game, etc. But I think Toronto's secondary is actually kind of coming back to the mean a little bit in terms of making plays on the ball. The interception numbers are starting to pick up. So I think if you're Ottawa, you can't really afford to take those chances and take those shots. So instead, I want quick passes that get the ball in your receiver's hands in space. They got a lot of big bodies or guys that are tough to bring down. Who can make a man miss. And so I think, quick slants, receiver screens, I think that's got to be the foundation of the attack this week. And I think, they had a lot of success running the football last time. Part of that was because of Crum, but they also had success with Adeboboye and Stanback running downhill, up the middle. I think you have to go back to that again. And then if Sluka plays, and I think he's going to right now, you have to test his change of direction. Anytime you got a DB coming back from an ankle injury, you want to really test him out. And so Drew Brown there needs to, stare right, throw left, stare left, throw right. You can also run high lows on a safety. Those are fun plays where you've kind of got an inside seam and then another receiver crossing in front of Sluka's face and make him kind of juggle between those two and test out that change of direction and mobility. So that would be my plan for the Ottawa Redblacks this week. Let's switch over to the good guys. JB, what is your defensive plan for the Toronto Argonauts and stopping Drew Brown and the Ottawa offense this week?
Like you say, I mean, Ottawa is terrible at the big play. They have 5 plus 30 plays so far in the season, which is very low. So they are not great at attacking you deep. They're not a great passing team. They're a decent running team. Adeboboye, full credit, has been good for them. I mean, I think you have to attack the middle of Toronto's defensive line. So, like, if I'm Toronto, definitely I have to try and load up against the run. I have to take that away and try and force Ottawa to beat me in the air. Ottawa has not shown that they've been able to beat anybody in the air. So that's what, you got to make them play one-handed. And so you've got to stop that middle. You've got to keep that running game under control. You cannot have your line being on, roller skates and being pushed backwards and teams averaging, 5 and 6, 6 and 7 yards, per rush. That just can't happen. So for me, it all starts there. You have to make sure that you take care of that, and you have to cover Gino Lewis. They don't have a million wide receivers. I mean, I think you're wanting to double him in obvious passing downs, and say to them essentially, like, if we can keep the run under control and if we can keep Gino Lewis under control, this team should not be good enough to outscore us. So I think that's really what you're looking at. Or those are your two focuses: is making sure you have safety shading to Gino Lewis and not letting him, run down the line on those deep passes, and just make sure that you're in his face and he's not a young man. You should be able to control him with a double team, and then go from there.
I know the numbers aren't there for the other guys, but like Lewis hasn't really scared me much this year, like he does like usually. Because generally, I think he's always a problem, and he's been a thorn in Toronto's side.
Well, he's an Argo killer for sure.
Yeah, like there's no question. And so you're just trying to avoid that sort of there's Gino Lewis kind of game. But a couple of those other guys have scared me, even though I know there's been injuries and they haven't had production this season. But like Pimpleton, I think is very scary with the ball in his hands, and Hardy, I think is always a problem. He's a really good receiver too. But yeah, you're right. Like you do not want this to turn into a Gino Lewis game. Switching over to the Toronto offense, I actually like how the Argos offense matches up against the Ottawa defense. I think this is the best defense in the league for them to play against. It just the stuff that they do. Ottawa allows teams to move up and down the field between the 20s. They really tighten up well inside the 20. Like that's why when you look at their numbers, they give up a ton of field goals, not a lot of touchdowns. That's why like they do sort of have a bend but don't break philosophy in their secondary. And I think that's great for Arbuckle because it allows him to kind of work within his wheelhouse, like make those short passes, work your way down the field with high percentage plays. And then he is good inside the red zone. So when Ottawa tightens up, that's when he's at his best anyway. And so I think that's what allowed them to throw the ball so effectively last time they played against the Redblacks. Now, they need to have a little bit more of a running game. Last time they were averaging just over a yard a carry against Ottawa. Obviously, that's not good enough. I know there were some problems last game because that was the game where Mayan Williams got injured, and so everything was kind of thrown out the window early. But yeah, I think if Arbuckle spreads the ball around, lets his receivers do work after the catch, they're going to send help for Coxie, and I think Mittal's likely down this week. So this has to be a Tavares game. I think he had a good game last time, a really good first half last time these two teams played. I think you have to target Daniels. I think he's going to be left largely alone because of Coxie's huge game last week. And I'd also personally challenge the offensive line. I think this is a game where head coach Ryan Dinwiddie can call out the offensive line specifically and say run production has to be better. This isn't on the backs. This is on you. And knowing that like Sceviour and Kemp were brought in this week, and those are both guys who have looked very good in the run game over the last few years, I think the message is clear. Like you better start producing here. And so if you call them out, not necessarily in pass protection, call them out in the run game and say this has to be a game where we're averaging positive runs, not 1 yard a carry, and see if they answer the bell. What's your one thing? Oh, sorry, go on, JB. Before
before I jump to the one thing is,
yep.
Connected to defense, sort of affiliative defense. We need, there has to be a big special teams bounce back. Ottawa's punt return, kick return is good. It's not unstoppable, but it is good. It's in the top third of the league. Ottawa's an offense that needs that, uses that. The punt return, kick return game has to be better. To state the obvious, they have to keep that under control. They can't let Ottawa start at the 40 and the 45. Their offense is not that dangerous. They need that complementary special teams. I know the coaches are probably going bananas about it because they know that Toronto's defense is in trouble. They're not great, and without Winton, they're really not great. And they have to have special teams helping them. They're not good enough to play without help.
Well, I think that's what was so irritating about last week's loss to Winnipeg is that Winnipeg's offense couldn't really do anything. Right, they were just turning the ball over. All you had to do was just don't let them just score in other ways, and you had 2 special teams touchdowns and a defensive touchdown. Like that's just like that's the one thing you couldn't do. Like force their offense to generate the points is a little bit like that with Ottawa, not to the same degree, but it's not far off. All right, one thing, JB. What is your one thing for this week?
God, I should go special teams. I've gone special teams a lot, but I'm going to go. Ottawa doesn't have a great pass rush. I'd love to see the offensive line have a great game. I'm going to go with not allowing more than 1 sack.
I think like that would be a huge win. Now, I'd like the knockdown numbers to be lower as well. You can bet people are going to be swatting at the football this week after what happened last week with all the knockdowns there were. But yeah, aside from knockdowns, like if you could keep Arbuckle upright, I think that is a recipe for success. I would love, like they need it so badly, some positive reinforcement. Like I feel for, especially for Boston Moore, because they're far better players than they look right now. And certainly they're way better players than the perception is among fans. And so for them to have a big game where you don't have guys running free and hitting Arbuckle as he throws, I think would be huge. My one thing,
look, I think it's a line they can do it against too.
Yeah, no, and it is like I said, it is a good matchup for them. My one thing, I want more than 4 yards per carry rushing average. I think you've got to be able to have a balanced attack. Like, it has to come around a little bit. I don't care that much about the running game, but you need to be able to do it. The threat of it needs to be there to a degree. And so 4 yards a carry or more, I think if Toronto can do that this week, I think they win this football game. It's time for Put Me Down for 20. JB, we are reeling. I've lost 4 straight. You, I guess, have lost 3 straight. Neither of us won a bet last week. I'm down to 175 golden fleeces from my starting 200. You're still positive at 210. But we're both looking for a bounce back after last week. I had the Argos at plus 225, which I still think is a ridiculous price for last week's game. And then I had the Elks plus 158. You'd think I would learn. And yeah, you also had Toronto plus 225, and you had Lawler first touchdown of the game at plus 650. And yeah, that's why we're hurting for fleeces this week. Before we get into our picks, a reminder that you should not take our betting advice seriously. We certainly don't. We are betting fictional golden fleeces, and so do not bet any of your hard-earned money on stuff we say. If you are going to bet, never bet more than you'd be happy to lose as the cost of entertainment. All right, I'll start it off this week, JB. I'm going to open with a parlay. I didn't love any of the lines this week. I'm kind of looking for, to get back in the black here. So I'm going to parlay it up. I got Lions Ticats over 55.5. And I'm going to parlay that with Edmonton outright. And that is going to generate me a plus 434 bet. So that's where 10 of my fleeces are going. And then my other 10 fleeces, DeVaris Daniels touchdown. I talked about in OCDC how I think this has to be a DeVaris game. He's plus 180 right now to score a touchdown. So that's where I'm putting my fleeces. Where are you betting this week, JB?
Yeah, I didn't really love any of the things on offer this week. I don't know what's going on exactly, but not a lot of delectable things. I don't love either of my bets, which is maybe that's good because sometimes I like my bets, but I feel like I'm just burning golden fleeces here. If ever there were a time not to listen, more so now. I have the Argos to win by more than 6.5 at plus 140. Not a lot of juice for a pretty decent spread, so I question that. And I love my over. BC Hamilton, I love the over. The hypothetical books do not love the over. And I had to go all the way to 60.5 to get enough juice worthy of getting out of bed for it. So plus 154, BC Hamilton over 60.5.
That sounds like a fun one to watch.
Those are not locks of the week. Do not participate in those.
And on to Challenge Flag. It was a rough one for you last week. You were 1-3 last week. Only Hamilton.
I feel like there should be reduce when the starting quarterback doesn't play. I'm like, wow. I mean, Calgary. I thought I had to make a guess whether Adam's going to play, and then they put in a burning, raging dumpster fire in at quarterback. So I feel those are tough ones when the quarterback is unknown. Now I stayed away from that one too. Like, I didn't challenge that pick because I didn't know either. So you get away with that a little bit because we both didn't know. Toronto over Winnipeg very easily could have gone your way. Really, probably should have gone your way. Definitely should have.
And then, I think the one I challenged was Saskatchewan over Montreal. And that was an easy. I'd never had to stress about that Challenge Flag. So I got the point, which puts me up 5-4 on the season. And your record is now 18-17. So you're due for a big week here. Let's see what you got for this week, JB, and which pick I will challenge. So BC at Hamilton in your what's going to be a 45-40 game by your betting. Who wins this one?
I like Hamilton. I don't like BC. I like Hamilton. I think that Hamilton is beatable. I don't think they're a juggernaut, but I think that they're healthy and they're at home. and I don't like BC on the road, so I have Hamilton there.
That's the big thing. Like they're healthy. Like you can't say that about too many teams right now. Like they are healthy and they look great. They look like the best team in the CFL. But like you said, it might be different if every other team had their full complement of players. That's why they're not unbeatable, but they are certainly playing the best football. So yeah, I like that pick. Edmonton at Montreal. Where are you going? This is a fun one.
I know. Montreal has a problem. They have a quarterback problem, as the Argos. It is very difficult to win without your starting quarterback in the CFL. There's just no two ways about it.
And they're pretty banged up now too. Like they actually look a lot like Toronto at the moment with the number of injuries they've got, including their starting quarterback. So like this is, Montreal is experiencing what the Argos have been going through this season.
Can the Elks go into Montreal and get a win? No, I say no. I will ride with Montreal despite Saskatchewan waxing them. No Elks.
Ottawa at Toronto. Are you hedging?
Yeah. No, I would never. I will never pick the All Caps. I have Toronto at home.
And then Winnipeg at Calgary to close the week.
Oh, that is so tough. I guess Collaros is going to play. I don't know what's happening in Calgary. I guess Adams is going to play. I'm going to take Calgary. I'm going to take Calgary there. I think they bounce back. I still really like their team. Maybe Winnipeg is starting to wake up, but I don't think so. I'm going to take Calgary one more time.
There's too many questions in that game for me to challenge that. I'm just going to stay clear of that. Ottawa, Toronto, I like your pick there. I like your Hamilton pick over BC. So I guess I've got to challenge the game in Montreal for the second week in a row. I'm on my Edmonton Elks.
Your Elks?
Yeah,
congratulations.
Well, I've been on them more than I would like to so far this season. And obviously, if you look at the record, that hasn't worked out well. But you're putting me in this hard position. That's the only game I feel comfortable challenging.
I know. I mean, Montreal did not look good at home last week. So, but I feel good. I feel good about that challenge. I'm ready to roll with that.
We'll wrap things up with our Something in the Water ticket giveaway. And our winner this week is Kurt Hyland. Kurt Hyland, you've won a pair of tickets to see the Toronto Argonauts host the Ottawa Redblacks this Saturday. And that is courtesy of Something in the Water Brewing. I will get in touch and get your particulars and make sure we get you those tickets. If you want to play, all you got to do is look out for the prompt the week of every home game. And all you have to do is repost or retweet my post asking for you to post or retweet. I should have worded this a little bit better. And if we randomly draw you, you are going to be a winner of a pair of tickets just like Kurt. Saturday, 3 p.m. start. Ottawa Redblacks at Toronto Argonauts at BMO Field. Make sure you get down there. Don't forget your non-perishables for Purolator Tackle Hunger. It is going to be a great one. It's certainly an important one. The Argos need you there. Get there early for the pregame festivities, for the hat giveaway. It's going to be a good one. That will just about do it for us on this pregame walkthrough episode of the X's and Argos podcast. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Together, fight the fight.